Fratton Park, European nights, Harry Redknapp,
Exactly.
bring it back.
You really hope John Mousinho's going to promote him.
How much is Louis Sibley worth? The
Well-
answer, nothing.
You were an average team in League One.
Derby might be able to nick a few points here and there.
Blackburn are a mess.
They are.
Hello guys, and welcome back to the Sportsman Untitled. We have returned because it's time to talk about the Championship season yet again. I'm today joined by Steven Allen and Sam Penfold as we look at the promoted teams, the relegated teams, and give a bit of an early preview as to what we think is going to happen this season. So Sam, let's start with a bit of manager news and Scott Parker taking the Burnley job. Now, he's had some success at this level before, but how do you think he's going to fare at Turf Moor?
I think he's got an opportunity to impress once again at Turf Moor. I think the squad that he's going to inherit is quite a young one, but there's bags of potential in there, there's bags of talent. It's not too far removed from the squad that Vincent Kompany put together when he first got back to the Premier League, so there's a whole load of talent in there. It's just a case of whether Scott Parker can tap back into it like he did when he got Fulham to the Premier League. I think, did he? He did get Fulham, didn't he?
Through the playoffs. That's the thing. There's been a question mark about him because he's got promoted with Bournemouth and Fulham, but he's done so in quite a. He's not made it easy for them. With Fulham, it was through the playoffs, and he obviously had a stinker at Club Brugge.
Yeah.
Now he's back. He's got a bit to prove, hasn't he, Stu?
He does. It's a tough one because Burnley they're not actually in the worst position as much as Kompany sort of. Some people might say screwed them over a little bit going into this season. They had everything ready for another year in the Championship anyway. They were preparing for it with Kompany. So now you've got a new man at the helm. Nothing's changing above the manager. But I think the problem with Scott Parker is that at Fulham he's expected to go up. He was expected to probably... Was it playoffs that he managed to get in the end? He was probably expected to get a top two finish rather than playoffs. Bournemouth, slightly more impressive than Fulham because maybe they were on the fringes of going up, whereas Fulham were not guaranteed, but they were one of the favourites. And very quickly after getting these teams back to the Premier League, he's not there within 3 months. Like Bournemouth binned him off as soon as he got beat 8-0 at Anfield, and it's interesting to see if it's going to be a long-term success for him at Burnley because he's clearly struggled with that in the past. So it's interesting.
I guess it's an interesting comparison to Daniel Farke in a way, in that he hasn't had success in the Premier League, but he's had success in the Championship. It's going to be very... do you think Burnley will be a top six contender definitely under Parker? Do you think they'll be top two contenders?
He wins the games that he should.
Yeah.
That was his sort of thing.
But is that down to him or is that down to individual quality in the squad?
I think regardless of the individual quality in the squad, I think he would comfortably be a top six manager in the Championship. Whether he can rely on individual moments to get them into that top two bracket remains to be seen. I would love to see Parker work with Wout Weghorst.
He's back, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd love to. He's still on the books at Burnley, which is insane. You saw what he did. Obviously, different players, and you can't really compare them too much. But a big man up top in Mitrovic at Fulham worked wonders for him. Could he do the same with Wout?
Yeah, I can't see him staying.
It's one of them. The Championship rewards good managers, and as much as Scott Parker's managed at the top of the Championship, I don't think he's a top six manager personally. I think he's sort of like not to reflect on the Euros that finished just yesterday, but he's sort of like a Gareth Southgate in the sense of he wins the games he should win. It might not be the prettiest, but he will win those games. And then when he gets the tougher opposition, and this season it's going to be Leeds that he'll probably be competing against at the top, he will lose that battle. And I feel like there might be some other teams that maybe pushes them into a playoff run.
Talking of pretty managers, you'll love that segue.
Love that. Tremendous.
Rob Edwards, he's still at Luton Town, and it felt like they were building in the summer of the Premier League that they had to come back down almost. They've got the money. I think there's a new stadium in the works. It feels like they're going to be very competitive. I'm more confident about Luton than I am about Burnley because they've got the same manager, they've got the majority of the same squad, they're not losing anything. They were ready for another season in the Championship, it seemed. They came very close to staying up, actually, in the end. Are they in the best place, do you think, of the three teams coming down?
I think definitely. They like you said, they've prepared for this. This is part of a bigger plan at the club. They're signing people that would be the best players in the Championship to play in the Premier League. Gave it a really good go. Rob Edwards has clearly got a lovely morale with the team, where everybody's got an understanding of what the common goals are, what the demands of him and the club are, and they're in a really good spot. They got relegated, probably not through lack of effort compared to, well, obviously you can't say that about the other two teams either, but
they put up more of a fight. Definitely.
They put up more of a fight because they managed to find a bit of quality. They were strong at home. They were just the whole, like, they didn't get beat by 2 goals against the big 6. That means something. It means that there's a spirit there.
Sam, would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Like Steve said, you've got the players that would have been top-end Championship players who could have maybe done a job for you in the Premier League. Didn't quite work out. But I think the consistency of having the same manager when you've gone up and then go back down isn't something many clubs tend to stick with. And I think that's arguably just as big of a factor here when you look at, like, what is a big signing during the summer? Do you know what I mean? If you look at, like, big names coming through the door but you've lost your manager, you don't know if it's all going to be the same. I think losing someone like Ross Barkley could be interesting for them. But that being said, there's still a lot of character in the squad. There's still a lot of high-quality players in the squad, especially for that level of Championship. And I think they're as long as 11-1 with Betfred to win the league outright. Mm-hmm. That is a very long market for a team with proven.
I mean, Carlton Morris, like Ogbene, like, they've got great attacking players in the Championship. Well. Yeah, I'm not sure if he'll stay. We'll have to wait and see on that. That's the thing with doing the podcast at this stage. There's a lot to still be decided, but people feel a lot more positive about Luton than they do about Burnley. The final team coming down, which are going under the radar almost. People just expect them to struggle. Yeah. Sheffield United, again, keeping Chris Wilder. Thoughts on them, Steve?
It's tough, isn't it? Because they struggled so much in the Premier League. Like, they will be known as a team that challenged Derby to that record of the lowest points, and up until about January, that was sort of what people were looking at, and it's difficult to get out of that rut. And once you go down, you either have to bounce back, first game 3-0 at home, sort of, and then your campaign starts properly. But they're losing a lot of players, a lot of experienced people, a lot of people that have been in that squad last time they've came up, and even someone like Brereton Diaz on loan. If you could get him on loan again, you've got guaranteed 20 goals in the Championship there, but they're not going to do it. And with the financial problems Sheffield United have had over the last few years, it doesn't look like things are going to get better. And for me, I don't think they're getting the playoffs.
I think the players that they're losing or have lost, it's almost like it needed to happen, almost a refresh, like Fotheringham, McBurney, Norwood, Lowe. These are players that you've said have been at Sheffield United for a long time. They've probably got a decent wage going for them. It feels like they have the ability and the flexibility to make some decent signings this summer, maybe Sam, and kind of push on. They're still going to have Hamer, who's been an incredible player in the Championship before. Yeah. Ahmed Hozic, who a name I never can pronounce. He's a brilliant defender. Right. Arblaster did well in the end of the Premier League season. They might be signing Kiefer Moore and Callum O'Hare. And if they get those sorts of players in, I think we can have a very different conversation when the season starts. Yeah,
and I think you look at the likes of Arblaster especially, getting kind of thrown in the deep end last year when Sheffield United were so poor, but he was getting invaluable experience in the Premier League at the highest level against some quality opposition, some quality opponents. He's now able to take that with him back down into the Championship, and he could have a really, really exciting season in that midfield with Hamer. Like you say, they could be signing Callum O'Hare. I think that's going to be, if you can get a Hamer-O'Hare link up again, we saw what they were able to do together when they were at Coventry. Hate to do it to you, Simon. But
I'm over it, it's fine.
We've seen what they can do together. So if you can bring in that sort of combination, they've still kept players like, I'm going to get his first name wrong, so I'm just going, his name's Souza.
Vinny Souza.
We'll just call him Vinny Souza. Yeah. He was well up there in dribblers tackled and tackles won last season in the Premier League. I think only second to Paulinho at Fulham, who's now moved on to Bayern Munich. So they've got a really tenacious midfield potential there. And I think, with this squad refresh, getting out McBurney, Norwood, etc., you're looking at an opportunity now for Sheffield United to kind of just hit the reset button, start over, and maybe build as underdogs with less pressure. It could work out for them.
think they look like they could be in a far better place in about a month's time when the season starts. We've got quite a few new managers to discuss coming in to new clubs here. Wayne Rooney taking the Plymouth job, Reggie Lillibury
Regis leaders
at Sunderland, Johannes Hoffthorpe at Norwich, Parker we've already discussed at Burnley, Tim Walter taking the whole job, and Tom Cleverley's also been made permanent at Watford. So 6 new fresh managers coming into the league here. Sam, let's start with you. Which of those 6 do you think is the most likely to have an absolute stinker in the Championship?
An absolute stinker in the Championship. I don't want to... Wayne Rooney's record isn't great, is it? Let's be honest.
Let's start with Rooney.
You can't beat around the bush there. His time at Birmingham was dreadful, whether that be the squad not really being up to par, whether that's him not getting the time to bring in signings. He said that he was promised to get to January and bring in his own players. He didn't get that time. So you can take some of it with a pinch of salt, but at the same time, the performances were not great. I think he could be looking at like a do or die type of situation for his Championship career as a manager here at Plymouth. Obviously, expectations are a bit lower. You've just got to keep them in the league. They don't have to be competitive. There's no expectation to challenge for top 6. But if they're bottom or in the bottom 2 or bottom 3 going into Christmas, it's not going to look good, is it?
You agree with that assessment of Rooney? I think he might. Oh, you say the lower expectations might help him. He did okay at Derby.
They weren't high at Birmingham though. Let's not.
Yeah, but they were high in the league, and that was the problem. And I think Rooney's biggest downfall in taking that job is that Eustace had done the pre-season, and Eustace had already had a decent few weeks before he was chucked out.
Yeah.
You need a pre-season as a manager. It's a waste of time. Unless you're Carlo Ancelotti going to a club that's just spent 200 million in a transfer window.
Everton.
No. They try to, but unless you're a top tier manager going to a top tier team, it so rarely works out changing your manager at that time of the season. And he needed the support of having coaches with him from day one, having buy-in from the players, because buy-in is the most important thing you need to have from a squad. And if they've just seen their guy binned off for the owner's mate, which that is what it did look like, you ain't going to get the buy-in from the players. The players aren't bothered. They're not going to fight for you. They're not going to believe in the tactics, that extra press, what you're going to be telling them to do. They're not going to do it. And I feel like with a pre-season, you might see a new and improved Wayne Rooney, which is it's difficult because the memories of Birmingham are tough to shake, but I think you're going to see it. I think the manager with the most to lose is Scott Parker. I think that Club Brugge job has basically meant he will never get a job outside England again. And I think if this fails at Burnley and he doesn't get at least the playoff finish, I think not only is he sacked, but I think he's got a long road to come back to manage the Championship again. And finally, Tom Cleverley at Watford. Love Tom Cleverley, by all means, but it's Watford.
Yeah.
And they change their managers more than I.
Change your socks.
Change me socks.
Interesting stuff. I don't know.
I don't know much.
Hopefully,
Once every 3 months.
hopefully Watford might actually stick with a manager. They've given him a chance, haven't they? Right, we've got some interesting foreign managers on the list as well. Are you feeling hopeful about any of these? I'm quite interested to see how Johannes Hoffthorpe gets on at Norwich, because he had a 50% win percentage at Nordsjælland. There's quite a lot of hope about him, and it feels like Norwich have moved back after the Dean Smith thing and the other things that haven't worked, the Wagner thing. I mean, he got them into the playoffs, but it was very odd. It was a very odd season for them. It feels like they're going back to kind of that Daniel Farke model that got them promoted. They've got a few changes that need to be made in the squad. Obviously, like Ashley Barnes, Shane Duffy, quite an ageing squad, it seems. I think they need to get back to young players, back to playing the football we think of Norwich in the Championship. I think he might be the man to do that. So I'm hopeful of Thorpe at Norwich. Are you positive about any other names on the list?
I agree with Thorpe. I feel like a lot of when you see foreign managers come into especially the Championship, look at where you're shopping. Look at what they've done before. You see Tim Walter at Hamburg before he goes to Hull. Hamburg's a really tough club to get it right at because they are massive. And obviously, they've sort of been stuck in the Bundesliga's 5 for so many years. He knows what it's like with the pressure of a big club, and coming to Hull aren't a small club by any means. They're one of the solid clubs in the Championship. Great fan base. So I feel like Tim Walter can be ready for that job.
He's got pressure though, hasn't he? Because Rosinia, him leaving wasn't a popular choice for the whole fan. So you think about the Eustace Rooney situation. Yeah. I know he's getting a pre-season, but there's more pressure.
It's the buy-in, like we said, and maybe that's where if you look at Thorup at Norwich, Nordsjælland are sort of like if you're shopping at the free agent market, you sort of go into an Esso garage looking for a meal deal. If you're shopping at Nordsjælland, you go into a fancy little restaurant that everyone in the village knows, but it's a bit of a kept secret. Nordsjælland are a well-run club with a great system for great youth academy that promotes players, and I feel like that's going to fit Norwich down to the ground. And someone in that club has done the research there.
We'll have a quick word on Sunderland as well from you, Sam. Lillibury had a 30% win percentage. He's been at Lorient in France for some time, working his way through the young systems and then getting the first team job. Sunderland doesn't feel like a club in a great place at the minute.
No.
It's a tough job, isn't it?
It's a very tough job, and I think it's not made easier by the fact that he was the 732nd choice when it comes to being manager. Like, that will... Maybe it'll, like, sit on the back burners for him and be, like, an inspiration to, like, kick on and, like, really prove himself. But I also think it's going to make it that little bit harder to get the buy-in from the fans. Again, like you say before about Hull, Sunderland are a massive club. Should probably be knocking on the door of the Premier League. There's no real reason why they shouldn't. If they're able to keep the likes of Joe Bellingham, if they're able to keep Jack Clark, then there's two really, really exciting players there. And you'd like to think that if you can get it right early on and get buy-in from the fans and prove them right with some attacking, some free-flowing football, and just be entertaining, but most importantly, win games. Because
I worry that Sunderland are always 2 losses in a row away from capitulation.
Netflix documentary.
Netflix documentary. The Stadium of Light, when they're not playing well and winning, is
not
awful.
Nice. Yeah. So I think that's going to be the toughest thing. The expectation is for them to be knocking on the door of that top 6. Not being by any means the first choice in the manager hunt. The players will know it, the fans know it, he'll know it. It's just a case of can he cast that to the side early on and put together a proper unity and a good team vibe. I think will be crucial. Buying again.
It's always about buying. It's our word of the day. Let's touch back on Hull City because they've had 2 big departures or 2 players that are leaving. Greaves has gone to Ipswich. This is going to be massive for them, isn't it, in terms of their squad, what they did last season. They've lost the manager. They've lost their 2 best players. Walt was going in there as a manager with a fairly decent reputation, but there's not a lot of foundations to build on.
Got a budget now, though.
How do you spend it? I mean, that's more... Yeah.
I think 30... Greaves was 21 odd million, and Philogene going to be 13 because of Villa's buyback clause. So, you've got 34 million. Obviously, you're not going to get to spend all of that, but you've got a decent bit of cash there to spend. How does he spend it? Does he dive back into the Bundesliga spy?
Does he buy the Hamburg squad?
Bring him with him.
To be fair, it's strange, isn't it? Because this is when football clubs need to be transparent to the fans. Hull City fans deserve to be told by the owner, this is a new plan. Rossini's gone. We've got a nice bit of money and we've got a decent transfer kitty to start the progress towards maybe promotion next season. The best thing Hull can do this season is just nice mid-table, get top half, see just with 5 games to go, see how close you are, and just see if there's a chance of playoffs, go for it. That is the best thing for Hull this year. It's tempering expectations. You need to know there's a plan, and therefore you need to knowing there's a plan. That's what's going to get bums on seats in the MKM Stadium. It's what's going to get a bit of buy-in from the players, and knowing that he's not here next year, but we've got a replacement lined up that's already here and he's already grown in the Championship. It's a bit like a less accelerated version of what Ipswich did with Kieran McKenna. So there's reason for excitement, but there's also a lot of anxiety, and I can understand why.
They had that kind of scattergun Turkish approach for a little bit, but then they have bought gems like Philogene for bargain prices, made massive profits.
It's clearly a scout that's good there.
Ultimately, that's what you've got to do in the Championship to raise some funds, and then it's what you can do with the funds that they can now spend £4 or £5 million on a player.
Villa have shithoused them there as well.
Yeah,
it's annoying to see because it's football. That's how it is. But they could have got so much more money for him. It's a bit upsetting.
Yeah, because the buyback clause plus the future sell-on clause that's the real kicker, innit? Like you were going to get 18 to whatever million from Ipswich or Everton or Palace. And then Villa have gone, right, well, we'll have him back, so we'll activate that clause. Oh, and by the way, we had a 40% sell-on clause, so just take that off the deal. Cheers, nice one. I mean, he's going to... People will be upset about him leaving and not going to a club like Ipswich or Palace where he'd get regular game time. But he has also grown up at Aston Villa, and he's going to potentially play in the Champions League.
Yeah. It's a good move. It's a good move. Let's turn our attention now to the 3 clubs that came up from League One. We'll start with the champions, Portsmouth. 12 years in League One it was. It gone by very slowly for their fans. John Mousinho, there's a lot of excitement about him as a manager. They've got a decent squad. I think it's fair to say that hopes are highest for Portsmouth to do the best in the Championship this season. Josh Murphy, they've stolen from Oxford, basically, great which is brilliant. Steve, Portsmouth, are you as high as everyone else is on their hopes?
I think you've just got to be really excited to see him back. Portsmouth are such a big club, and obviously the mentality of Portsmouth as a city, or I think it's a city.
It is.
Thank God. The mentality, the fact that it's an island on an island, and it's sort of you've got to go there and get something, and the stadium's so.
Fratton Park, European nights, Harry Redknapp, exactly. Bring it back.
Exactly, everybody loves it. It's so traditional, and there's so much culture there, and it's weirdly just not like anywhere else in the country. So it's nice to see Portsmouth back, and you'd hope that signings like Josh Murphy taking the guy that got Oxford promoted basically at Wembley, it's just stealing him off your rivals and hoping that he does the job for you. It's exciting, and you really hope John Mousinho is going to pull it all together.
He's a very talented manager, it feels like. There's a bit of concern on how tough their start is looking at the fixtures. Does it make that much of a difference, or do they need to get points on the board early on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll read it out for our dear audience. You've got Leeds United away, Luton Town at home, Middlesbrough away, Sunderland at home, West Brom at home, Burnley away, Sheffield United home, Stoke away.
Doesn't get much tougher in the Championship, does it? I mean,
that's not going to get a tougher opener in 20 seasons. Like, that is a ridiculously tough start to the campaign. I think if you wanted a test to see how battle-hardened your squad is, how resilient your squad is, how ready you are for this jump up to the Championship, for what it's going to take to stay in there, if you can come away from that sort of running, or not running, if you can get away from that opening 8 games with 12 points under your belt, like, you're buzzing.
It's where the home form is going to be so important, isn't it? You'd expect them to lose to Leeds away. You'd expect them to probably lose to Borough away. But getting Luton at Fratton Park, West Brom at Fratton Park, the atmosphere there, it's going to play a real part in trying to keep them up. Yeah.
No, it's going to be very important. Just can they do... We're trying to push the positivity and hopefully they'll get 12 points and they'll be over the moon with that. That's a solid start to the season when you look at what they've had to face. On the flip, you could get battered for the first 7 games, really.
They're not a club that's going to panic, though. If they're in the relegation zone at the end of this first 8 games, that's fine. Mousinho is going to stay. They're going to try and move away.
Look at Wednesday last year. They're bringing a new manager. I'm not saying that they need to do that because I don't think they should. Just don't twist. Just stick with the man and let him do his job. Just get through it. It's going to be grim, and you might take a hit on ticket sales for the next few games. You're just going to have to sit and bear it. It's one of those things. Yeah. You'll be in a better place come January. You'll be fine.
They will hopefully be fine. Let's move on to Derby County, who finished 2nd in League One. Paul Warne, of course, a master of getting out of League One, but then a master of getting relegated from the Championship, albeit with Rotherham, who are the ultimate yo-yo team. Do you think he's going to do a better job at trying to stay up with Derby, Stu?
It's tough because Derby and Rotherham are sort of... A few years ago, you'd have said Derby have got the firepower in the team to sort of stick around, but getting promoted... It's a high, but it's also one of them where it's another tough test that this team isn't used to playing in the Championship like it used to. And Paul Ward, like you said, he's really good at getting out of League One, but he's bobbins at staying in the Championship, isn't he? So it's tough. Caden Jackson coming in,
it's a couple of good attacking signings for a club coming up from League One. Jerry Yates as well. I mean, didn't have the best time at Swansea, but when you pair him with Caden Jackson, you'd think they would have enough goals there.
You'd think so. And it's just sort of, you need runners. You need people that will keep you in games, and I feel like those two can do that. And Derby might be able to nick a few points here and there.
Let's go down to Oxford as well. They only got 77 points in League One. They won the playoffs. They've got a good manager in Des Buckingham. They've signed Conor Hourihane and Louis Sibley, but they are favourites to go down, Sam.
Yeah.
Is that just because they're the League One playoff winners, the size of the club?
Yeah.
They haven't been able to sign Josh Murphy. It feels like it might be quite a big ask for them to stay up.
It's going to be a very, very tough season. Yes, they've signed some good players. I mean, both of those, I believe, were on the books at Derby County last year. So, Sibley was highly touted as a youngster.
I remember a tweet about Louis Sibley comparing him, saying Jude Bellingham's been sold for 25 million to Borussia Dortmund. How much is Louis Sibley worth? The answer, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, so he was highly touted once upon a time. Conor Hourihane, great professional to have in and around the squad. But I think you look at just the overall build of what's going to go on at that team this year. Come up through the playoffs, you were an average team in League One.
They were slightly above average. They finished fifth. Come on.
No, but in terms of the teams that were knocking on the door for promotion, they didn't jump out at you and be like, they should be promoted and they've been hard done by.
But they did absolutely boss Bolton, who were a brilliant League One team in the playoff final. So again, can they do that every now?
By the same merit, though, I'd say looking at the League One the year before with Ipswich, Wednesday, and Plymouth all going up, that's three really strong teams that went up. And obviously, Ipswich are now Premier League, Plymouth and Wednesday both still in the league.
It's a definite drop in quality.
I think whoever was third, including Bolton, you were probably going to get relegated the year after anyway, because it's a tough nut to crack. A lot of quality has fallen into League One in the last few years, so it's a challenge, and it's one of them. It's if you've got a decent manager that the fans seem to like and the players seem to like, it doesn't have to be something you sack a manager over. You can do a Luton and put your manager first.
They've also got a new stadium on the horizon, so
exactly. So
the comparisons to Luton might be actually deeper than we first think. Even if they go down, it's not the end of the world.
Definitely.
Right, let's wrap this up with a few big questions. You've mentioned them, Ipswich going up to the Premier League. We also have to talk about Leicester and Southampton. They all got promoted with massive points totals. They all did very well in the Championship. It feels like they're in a good place to try and stay up, maybe barring Leicester, in the Premier League. How do you actually think they'll get on?
I really hope Ipswich stay up. There's a really nice magical story happening there with McKenna and the fact that the new owners came into a club that was really on the rocks for a few years and they've just flown straight to the Premier League. And you just hope there's enough quality in the squad to pick up those wins where Luton couldn't. And the only question is that you'd love them to stay and you think that they might, but who goes down instead of them, who's currently in the Premier League? And it's just tough because it's like Everton probably won't be around there again because it'll be a full Dyche season with a few more additions because they've sorted the PSR out.
Last season at Goodison,
it will mean something, and the players are going to be up for it. And it's tough. It's tough for all three, and I feel like Ipswich need to get out early and sort of put a marker down, a bit like what Bournemouth did, where everyone's predicting to go down, but it's just sort of nope, we're 11th.
They've spent a bit of money. We've seen with the Greaves signing. They've broken their transfer record to buy Omari Hutchinson as well. They're going about it in a way that shows ambition.
Yeah, definitely. And contrast that to the other two teams. Leicester's sort of worried about the points deduction. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if there's been an update recently, but it's just sort of it's looming over them as a club. And I feel like if that arrives and it's anything more than 10 points, you're basically down already. Their squad probably isn't good enough like it used to be to get within that top 15 and just be safe in the last month of the season. So Southampton, similar situation. Obviously, they're not going to get a points deduction, but you don't know where they're going to be come next March, and it's so hard to predict who they're better than based off what happened last season.
And Sam, we'll talk about Leicester because they've also lost Dewsbury Hall to Chelsea. They've also lost Enzo Maresca to Chelsea. It feels like they are, I don't want to say the Sheffield United going up this time, but they've lost their best player and they've lost their manager.
Yeah.
And a deduction.
They've got Steve Cooper in charge, who didn't get the best reaction from the Leicester fans, obviously, because of his past with Forest. It's going to be really tough for them.
It's going to be very tough. And I think you look at, not the reliance, because they had Mavididi last year and Fatal, was it? And they were both really electric, really exciting players. I don't think Fataru's signed permanently, unless I've missed that.
I don't know.
We'll fact check that one for you. But like Mavididi is an exciting winger, but he's not going to carry you to safety. Jamie Vardy is
92.
He's knocking on the door of 37 now, nearly 36, 37. I just don't see losing Dewsbury Hall as well. I don't see there being enough quality in that squad to stay in the Premier League, and you lose your manager, and it's just a bit like that's I think where Southampton have the edge, because they've got the consistency again with the manager, like Rob Edwards going down with Luton, coming up with the same manager. I think just gives you that little bit extra.
A lot of excitement about seeing Russell Martin in the Premier League. Obviously, the possession style of play, it could work. It could skill them a few points.
Southampton have done it before. They've been in this position before where they've relied on youth. They've had a lovely possession style of football when they came up last time, and it's what you want to see a club. You want to see clubs going for it and not be sort of play three at the back and hope for the best, like a bit like what Sheffield United have done last season. It's sort of it's what you want to see from a promoted team, and I think that is the difference between the teams that stay up and the teams that don't. It's specifically Bournemouth, when they got Iraola in, everybody said last year they were going to finish 19th. Everybody. And he comes in and they press better than anybody else. They can play out from the back better than probably 11, 12 of the teams in the league. And they've got a striker that can get 20-odd goals a season. And that's all you need to stay up. And do Southampton have it? Maybe not, but that possession alone will give you the chance.
So an early prediction, which, if any, of those three are staying up in your book?
Ipswich stay up.
I think Ipswich stay up. I think Leicester are down probably with about 3 weeks to go. And I think Southampton go down on the last day.
I think Leicester finish bottom.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Leicester finish bottom. I think Ipswich, come on. Ipswich will be what we thought Burnley might be.
Yeah, I'd really like Ipswich to stay up. The concern would be the defence. They concede goals.
Jacob Greaves will sort that.
You'd hope so. And I'll just sprinkle it in there to go down with the two teams. Brentford. See you later.
Okay. I think Southampton might have enough to stay up as well, but that is more than enough Premier League chat. We don't want to talk about the Premier League. Let's go back to the Championship and talk about our final questions. What is one early Championship signing that has caught your eye that you think, I like a bit of that?
Am I going first?
You take it
as
away,
well.
sir.
Alan Brown leaving Preston.
Captain
of Preston. It's a tough pill to swallow for Preston. And I feel like him joining Sunderland, be part of the Regis revolution over at Sunderland. It's
sounds like something that they just put on sale at Boots, the Regis revolution. I think I need some of that.
But it's looking at Sunderland, that team needs a leader, it needs experience. It's a young team that sort of can easily get bullied in a game. Alan Brown might be the one that shows that team up, and I've just got a feeling sort of sticking in the same place for Sunderland, sort of like middle bottom of the league. That'll do for another year until you can get more people in, so you can sort of see where Regis Libre's at, and
you know what you're going to get with Alan Brown,
and you've already lost Alex Pritchard, so
you've got that experience. He's captained them for however long. He's got so many games at this level. He's a guaranteed performer, which is a rare thing in the Championship, I think.
Yeah.
Sam,
we were talking about earlier, and I wasn't too sure, but Macaulay Langstaff going to Millwall, I think, is a really nice pickup if he can carry on his goal scoring rate. I think his record at Notts County was It was like 72 goals in. I don't know if this is league and cup, but 72 goals in 91 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's a
ridiculous record.
It's an absurd return. If you can get him bagging 15 for you in the Championship, because I don't know when they last had a nailed on striker. They've obviously had like the likes of Gregory, Bradshaw. Who else?
They had Zian Fleming last season. Jed Wallace, yeah.
Like, they've had players that would score goals for them, but they've not had someone with this sort of record. I'm really excited to see if he can make that. Because let's not beat around the bush as well. Jumping from League 2 to the Championship is going to be tough. But
worth the gamble.
Millwall with like a little bit of rough and ready football. I think the Den will love him. I'll be really, really excited to see what he can produce.
Interesting. I've picked out Joe Rodon. I know it's Leeds United and they had him last season, but the fact they lost Archie Gray to Tottenham, who I think will be brilliant for Spurs, and they've got back in Joe Rodon on a permanent basis. Again, you know what you're going to get. He's a sure thing in the Championship. He's still got a ceiling he can progress to. I think Farke will be pretty happy with that deal, and I don't think they actually spent too much on him. How much was it, Sam?
It was about 11, 12 million.
Okay. It's a decent outlay, but when you've got that amount of money coming in for Archie Gray, I just think it'll be a really solid signing for Leeds and have them competing near the top of the league again. And Radoni moving from Huddersfield to Coventry, a few million spent on him, but again, a young player with a big ceiling. Hopefully the Callum O'Hare replacement at Coventry, and hopefully he can, playing in a better team, we might see his game improve again. So a few selections there to keep our eye on for the new Championship season.
Definitely.
We've had a little look at the betting market. Sam, you touched upon something earlier. What's your value pick right now at this early stage? Because this is where the value is at.
So value pick for me, early doors, just going to go outright. Luton Town 11-1 with Betfred. I think that's ridiculous odds for
to win the league.
Yeah, to win the Championship. I think you look at the team that, like we've discussed, you take them up to the Premier League. They fight to the very end to stay in. They then fall back down into the Championship with pretty much the same squad, same manager, same fan base who are absolutely dying to get a taste of Premier League football once again now that they've got it. I really don't understand how they're such long odds. So yeah, for me, value pick Luton Town 11-1.
I'll go with Sheffield Wednesday to finish in the top 6.
Oh yes,
3-1. I feel like there hasn't been a better manager since he arrived than Danny Roll, and it's just sort of like yeah.
If you look at the points they accumulated, I think they would be 4th in the table if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Since he arrived, and given he arrived to a team that could not win a game,
they were shocking,
so bad. He took them very clear of danger. Like we knew they were going to stay up because of the form they were in.
Yeah.
I think it's a very exciting time at Wednesday, and they're not going to be. We're not even talking about them as potential relegation candidats, are we?
And they signed Charlie McNeil, Bagsman,
who could turn out to be unbelievable. So it's really interesting to watch what happens. Obviously, he got a bit of public exposure on ITV covering the Euros this summer, and everybody seems to like him. Everyone in Sheffield Wednesday seems to like him, and most impressively, they went from not just the rut that they were in where they couldn't buy a win for love nor money. It was the fact that they were drawing games that they should have lost as well. So they were just putting themselves in positions where they can win or at least pick up a point. And I think that's so important going into like the last 10 games of a season where like we've seen it before. We saw it with Blackburn against Millwall on the final day. A few things like COVID. It just takes you being within that threshold and you can overturn the odds, and the least favourite team in the top 10 can finish in the playoffs, and you've had an unbelievable season. So
he's also getting a full pre-season, which he did. He had Cisco Munoz's pre-season to walk into, which was
clearly was just going to TGI Fridays and eating chicken. So.
Barry Bannon loved it.
Barry Bannon smashing the sesame chicken.
Right, my value pick so far is Sheffield United to get promoted, not outright. It's 11-2 at the moment, and they're so far down the betting order.
Yeah, doesn't make
for a team that has a reasonable manager in Chris Wilder, who I think could lead a promotion charge. And I think their odds are just going to come down and down and down. If they sign Callum O'Hare and Kiefer Moore, they're two of the best players in the Championship. I think we'll see them have a squad that can compete for a top 2 place. And I think there's just been too much negativity for what we've seen in terms of they were terrible in the Premier League. They were absolutely terrible in the Premier League. And I think people have gone, there's no way they'll come back up.
I have.
I think it's too early to say, and given the players they've been linked with, I have to say, if they don't sign these players, I won't be hot on them at all. But given they are linked with these players, I know they're willing to pay a reasonable wage for signing the likes of Callum O'Hare. You've got to put them in contention, certainly for a top 6, potentially for a promotion place. So I think they're offering decent value at 11-2. And our final question, you finding something on your phone there, Sam?
I was just having a look on at the other end of the table. I was looking for Blackburn relegation odds should they lose Sammy Smodic, who's apparently linked with Ipswich Town.
We'll come to that because final question of the day, early on, filming this just after the Euros ended. Gun to your head, can you give me your winner of the Championship and the team that will come bottom? Sam, you've already said your winner, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Luton Town to win, and gun to my head, who finishes bottom? It will be Oxford United. It's boring, but it's going to happen. They're not going to shock anyone.
Okay, all right.
Leeds to win the league. It's just, you don't have to be as good as you were last year to win the league this year, and they're not as good as last year, but they will be nearly as good as last year, and I feel like
that'll be enough. 85, 87 points.
88 points will do it. And
they've got a manager who has done it twice before.
The manager can do it. They've got players that know they can win these games. They just avoid the playoffs and you'll be fine. That's just the Leeds way of doing it. Bottom, written 2 teams that just Derby or Plymouth.
Oh,
it's tough because
poor Wayne Rooney.
This depends how he starts. This is the thing. If Rooney is winless until October, because they're not going to sack him until at least November, then they'll go down bottom. But it's just also Derby. I'm looking at Derby. It's not doing it for me. It's just not doing it. I know they came up so well last year. But I just think they look like a team that could get bullied.
These early predictions are going to make us look stupid. I'm well aware of that.
No, we're all going to get it right.
Okay.
Even with different selections, we're all going to be right.
In the Championship that I watch on the never-ending adverts of Sky Sports Plus, I'm
not a sponsorship.
No,
can be though.
Stop advertising.
I'll go Leeds to win the Championship as well. I think they're not going to be far off. I agree with you, Sam. As Steve, they're going to get a decent number of points. I believe in Fark. I think they're going to be pretty steady in the top 4 and hopefully win the league. The team that comes bottom, why stopped you in the track? It tracks, Sam. Blackburn Rovers. Blackburn are a mess. They are a shambles. They can't afford to sign anyone, basically. Schmodix is going to go for a fee that's way under what you think it will be, probably by the end of the summer. Yeah. They've got a court case coming up in India that could screw them over. They don't want to invest any money. You have to look at stability in the Championship, and they don't have any at all. It's a bit chaotic what's going on at the club at the moment. There's players that should have signed that aren't going to be able to sign a new contract. Seems Carl McFadden, who came in, isn't even going to sign a new contract. There's so many number of issues to be worried about Blackburn right now. And if Smodic leaves, which is likely, I mean, I can't see him wanting to stay at the club right now. What do they have? What do they have that's going to keep them in the Championship? And why wouldn't they be the worst team?
Well, so if you watch John Eustace based on his Blackburn performances, you could very easily see why Birmingham swapped him for Wayne Rooney, and that's not a very nice thing to say about him. And he really needs this pre-season to get a squad together and just sort of us against the wall. Every game's going to have to be a battle. Scrap for as many points as you can and pray to God that this team's worse than you are.
It's not that I necessarily think he's an awful manager. I just don't think he's a good manager. I think he's an average Championship manager, potentially with one of the worst squads in the league.
Yeah.
And with the uncertainty going on, the owners maybe won't be able to afford to sack him. They maybe won't even bother sacking him. I think there's a real disconnect between the fans. Ewood Park's just a terrible place to play football at the minute.
This is why football needs an independent regulator, because the Venkies need to have the control of the club taken off them, because it is a joke.
And you look at what's happened to, I think it's worth mentioning what happened to the women's team as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're on an annual wage of £9,000. They have to pay for all their own fuel. I think they share 2 toilets in porter cabins with all of the youth academy as well, all the boys.
Right.
That's just not a situation that should be happening.
A professional football club.
A professional football club, they shouldn't be.
They just sold Adam Morton for 25 million or whatever it was.
Well, that probably paid off some debts and helped keep the stadium ticking over.
Apparently, they're getting about 5 million for David Raya's permanent move to Arsenal this summer. Again, that's probably just going to keep the lights on. There's no sustained investment in the squad, and the women's squad, as you mentioned, it's just like alarm bells ringing.
It's a disgrace. The Blackburn we knew and grew up with, obviously, when Jack Walker invested all the money and won the Premier League, and it was the dream come true. That united a small northern town and became a Premier League force for so many years, and everybody's got really nice Barclays memories of Blackburn. And to see him like this, it's just disgusting.
It stinks of Reading to me. Another team that was a decent Premier League outfit for a few years, definitely top-end Championship team for a while. Yeah. Now down in League One and with real issues, I cannot see anything other than relegation for Blackburn this season.
Agreed.
Unless the Venkies go and something massive changes, which isn't going to happen.
Doesn't seem likely.
So that's a really positive note to finish our returning Sportsman Untitled episode. We'll be back soon to catch up with some more championship transfers and hopefully bring you some more playoff challenge preview. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Sam, for joining me. And we'll see you next time on the Sportsman Untitled.